Hello there and a very warm welcome to the Morning Cafe. My name is Leangari. Indeed, a beautiful morning, and I hope that you have started off on a high just like me. Well, I want us to begin today, as always, looking at the dailies, seeing what is happening across the country. Of course, stories making headlines across the dailies. And online via Skype, we have Joy Mdivo, who is an advocate of the High Court, to help us understand the stories we'll be looking at. Joy, are you there?
Good morning.
Good morning, Joy.
It's good to see you.
How are you feeling today?
Blessed. I'm very thankful and very blessed.
Amen. Well, Joy, I want us to take a look at the People Daily this morning. On the front page, stories that have been making headlines indeed is one of them. Uhuru reads riot act to Ruto MPs. Basically, this story talking about the no-nonsense tough-talking president warning Tanga members over insults as House Majority Leader Duale survives purge that saw the two DP allies kicked out of leadership slots. Of course, you do know this story has been developing for quite some time, Joy, and I don't know what your thoughts are as far as the developments are concerned. I'm breaking up?
Yes. Would you check that again, please?
Sorry about that, Joy. I'm talking about a story on the front page of the People Daily. Can you hear me now?
Yes, clear.
So the headline reads, Uhuru reads riot act to Ruto MPs. Basically, the president warning Tanga members over insults as House Majority. Basically, this story talking about insults as House Majority Leader Duale survives purge that saw two DP allies kicked out of leadership slots. This story on the front page of the People Daily. Joy, I don't know what your thoughts are as far as the developments are concerned around this story.
I think this builds up from what we saw last week, but one regarding the realignments in Jubilee Party. I think the president is very determined to deliver on his promise, and he has decided that enough is enough. There's no more time for shenanigans. It's time to sort of crack the whip. And I think this has been a very effective strategy, because if you even saw the deputy president during the Madaraka Day celebrations, he seemed a very much more subdued individual than we were used to before. So I think this is good for the president, because it gives him an opportunity now to sort of assert his authority, and not just asserting his authority for any sake, but we can see he's very targeted towards delivering. You could tell even from his speech on Madaraka Day, he was very clear about what he wants to deliver. And he said, I don't want to look at what I have done. I want to look at what I have remaining. With that in mind, therefore, I think he's gotten to a place where he doesn't want, let's remember the time when there was the fiasco with the finance bill, where he would introduce something on the floor of the House and it would be defeated. He wouldn't be sure whether he can get the numbers. I think what he's trying to drive at now is to be able to be certain that if there's a government agenda that is coming to the floor of the House, it will not be frustrated, and much less by people who are standing or are serving in his own party. So I think that is where this is coming from, and I'm sure in the days to come we will see more developments. What happened yesterday maybe was like a warning shot, but remember the new whip was told within 3 weeks I want to see changes. So I guess it's not yet over. It's still, this is going to be a long week for some people.
Well, the National Assembly Majority Leader, that's Aden Duale, surviving yesterday. What do you make of it? What do you think is the reason behind him surviving the purge?
I had him giving an interview on another media station yesterday, and he said he wasn't in any car crash or any accident, so he can't be said to have survived anything. That nothing is permanent. And you can tell that is brave talk. If somebody starts talking about, I have done my bit, I'm very proud of what I have done, this is not a permanent position, any Kenyan can serve in it, then you can tell maybe we're thinking he has survived, but he knows something that we don't. Maybe he knows it's a postponement of the inevitable. That's why I'm saying this is going to be a long week for many people, because if in the time that the whip has been given to reorganize the National Assembly, I'm sure we'll have seen a lot more of these realignments happening. Or even if somebody, quote unquote, survives or stays on in the position they've been in, we probably will see a change of tune. Not very hard hitting or very hard against the government, but we'll see a lot more toned down and pliant individuals serving in the National Assembly.
All right. There is a story here, at least on matters education. Seems like at least some developments, even as much as we await to see how soon the reopening will be, if it does actually happen. Joy, there's a story on page 6 talking about KCSE candidates securing university slots. This story further talking about the paltry 20% of students who sat last year's Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education exam have secured placement in universities on government sponsorship, with the lion's share of the position being taken by Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. As much as we have COVID-19, still things seem to be moving in the education sector.
As they should, because as we have heard from the WHO, COVID is going to be with us for a while. So if we stop our lives because there is COVID, we will not be very smart people, because eventually the center has to give way and we must move forward. So one of the things that I'm sure we'll be seeing in future is not just the gradual reopening, but some of the things that had sort of stalled having to be restarted. And I'm glad that we're seeing this coming out, because I've even seen some parents on social media who are saying, okay, my son got called for this, can I change and go for this? People are starting to realize, you know what, there is a tomorrow after all this. The good thing with universities is that many of them have developed a capability to do online learning. And so you find that for them, progressing is not as difficult or as complex as it would be for primary schools, for example. So if you're going to do a course for, like what I'm doing now, let's say law, most of it can be done theoretically. You don't need to be in a lab, you don't need to be in a morgue if you're learning something practical. You can do a lot of your initial learning 100% online. So that progress is good. And we are seeing the possibility of maybe this year not being a KCSE. Maybe, I'm not saying that that's the case, but it's possible that this year there may be no KCSE being churned out. So the universities need to absorb a lot more of this, the individuals who are outside, if they're going to have a gap here where they'll not have an intake. So it's also for their own survival, part economics and part education. Life has to go on.
All right. You know, something, even as you talk about the fact that there's developments around the education sector, we know that data indicates that of the number placed to join degree courses, some will join the STEM program, which is critical for producing skilled workforce required to attain the Big Four agenda. Of course, this means that more students will have the opportunity to be placed, whether in degree courses, at least in some institutions, Joy, so that whatever they attained in terms of their grades in high school does not go to waste. Yeah, and then of course we are also seeing these stories further talking about that the CS for Education is encouraging candidates who scored C+ and above in the last year's examination and qualified for placement to degree programs, opted for diploma courses in TVET institutions, and were placed appropriately. I think this is good news, because not everyone will score the same grade, but at least the government is trying to make sure that everyone has a place towards advancing their dreams and actualizing them.
And we've realized that there's actually a gap developing in the market where we had very many people opting to go for degree courses and not enough opting to go for vocational courses. And so you have this myriad of electrical engineers, but you don't have enough electricians. So we got to a place where even as an economy, we started feeling that gap. And I can tell you for a fact, even in my house here, if I need a plumber, I tell you it is pulling teeth, getting somebody who's competent to be able to do the work. But if I wanted somebody to design a water system, some filtration, getting somebody to design it will not be a problem. So I think even in encouraging, even people with, not forget about even the C+ and above have qualified to go to university, but even encouraging those ones who want to take up, even with the C+ and above, if you don't take up a vocational course, to go ahead and do it. Because I've seen also some parents saying, we were called to a degree, but we've opted to go for a diploma because they'll be done in a shorter time, they'll learn a practical course, and they can start earning even while they work on their degree. So it's becoming actually a path of choice to also take up opportunities in the TVET and in the diploma courses in what was polytechnic before, rather than going straight for engineering or straight for architecture, starting with something more practical. And in this COVID season, that's what we've realized, that people who've been earning their money with practical hand skills have kept earning. Those of us who were earning our money because of book skills have found our earning capacity greatly curtailed because of our movement. So it's a lesson learned for all of us.
And further to this story, there's another related story, Joy, talking about agency decrying low placement requests. That's on page 7. Basically, there's a concern that the University Placement Agency has urged the Education Ministry to issue policy guidelines to all secondary schools for submitting university applications on behalf of students. Seems like there's an expectation of a certain number, but it seems like the applications are few, yet the opportunities are there.
And you know, this happened especially after, allow me to just say this, it's not very nice, but let's just go there. After the Kaimeni A's stopped being churned out, enough people started getting their quote-unquote real grades. And we've seen people realizing, reckoning with themselves and realizing, so this is where I'm at, this is my level. And so you find many people who are not interested in trying to achieve the unattainable. This is a good thing, because remember Professor Magoha, when he was still at the ministry that time, there's a day he told us that of the people who are getting absorbed into the medicine faculty, I think it was a high number, like 60% were dropping out because were simply not competent. So maybe this is a good thing, because we had an artificial glut in our universities and an artificially high admittance. Maybe this is a good thing that will help us to pace ourselves, but at the same time, it also issues a small warning sign. Are our children losing interest in higher education? When I was growing up, all of us wanted to go to university. When I talk to my children, people are talking about coding, others are talking about becoming audio stars. They have such a different worldview. Them becoming a big shot lawyer like their mom or a computer engineer like their dad is not a thing that they think is to aspire to. They have dreams. They have options. So there's also a change in how our children are coming up and the placement of university education in our lives. So it's a whole paradigm shift, and universities are well advised to study this trend and see how they can adapt so that they are able to offer courses that are more enticing to this generation rather than the traditional, who wants to go and do zoology or botany. You know, these kids these days want to learn how to code, how to make things, to become inventors and innovators. Maybe it's a lesson learned for us as well.
Yeah. Joy, the interesting thing, I've done a couple of stories on the youth, and one thing I've noticed with most of them is they're into arts, entertainment.
A lot.
So most of them are either doing music or painting, drawing. This is, I don't know if it's a form of expression for them. They are a different kind of breed. Yeah, but they seem to love things that are different. And as you say, maybe the government needs to consider having some courses that play in line with the interests that some of these young people have.
No, it's for the universities. It's a business decision. Study your market. What do people want? Give them what they need and what they want. So we've got children who are like, now I have a 5-year-old. You should see her she begs me to open her own YouTube channel. So she talks to herself and she does, welcome to my channel. Don't forget to click subscribe. Don't forget. And I'm looking at her thinking to myself, do I really want to start this with you? But that's where they are right now. These children are so pretty. You should see her trying to make her own slime, trying to make her own glitter. And I look and I'm like, when I was your age, I was playing Matope Kalungu. That was like the extent of my artistic expression. But they are at such a different breed. And then as far as they're concerned, their self-actualization is when they do what they love. Unlike us who would kill ourselves, even if you had no acumen to become a lawyer, you would study to become a lawyer because that was your dream. With them, if something doesn't come easy, they simply just don't do it. They simply drop the subject. Like my elder one got to a place that she was like, you know what, I don't get Swahili at all. So she does French. So I have a child who's a Kenyan who cannot speak Swahili but can speak French. They are they're wired so different. And so as an investment decision, forget even about the government, the universities need to learn where are these children at, what is coming at them, where are the trends in the world? Is it Silicon Valley? Adapt to that and give them what will help them fit into their world rather than what we used to envision as being the ideal world.
Page 8, Joy, headline here reads, State concerned over Kenyans not seeking medical care. Of course, many hospitals experiencing a low number turn up of maybe patients who want services or people who just want to do a checkup. Many people seem to be a little bit afraid of visiting hospitals.
Me included. Right now, if God forbid I felt unwell, I would think very carefully before I turned up at the hospital. And the problem is not that Kenyans do not want to seek medical attention, is something we've talked about here before. The stigma that was created about this corona illness, such that, like yesterday, I looked at the news, and there are people in KMTC who are saying they've been kept in the quarantine too long, they're not being fed properly. There are people in Mombasa who are saying, by the way, the same thing. It's not efficient, it is not working. So if I'm not sure I have corona, why would I go and risk being quarantined because I turned up and I was coughing or I had a sore throat? I would rather sit in the house and deal with it myself. And that has become part of our Achilles heel in dealing with this coronavirus, because the initial reaction of how we started dealing with people who we suspected were suffering from corona was not empathetic. We treated people like it was almost a crime to be unwell. And now we've gotten to a place where many Kenyans are very apprehensive about being treated in that manner. So if they have got something they feel is wrong with them, but they can handle it, they would rather handle it. But the flip side of it is, were we really sick to begin with? Or did we just go to hospital for every little short, small, thing? Because there are those who need to go to hospital, they've had to go to hospital, because there's a 40% occupancy. Right now, our attendance rate, I was listening to one of the ladies talking about their renal unit, has never dropped an appointment. The ones who need to go to hospital have had to go to hospital. They keep going. But I realize that there's a lot more of us who are filling waiting rooms, and maybe we really didn't need to. So it's a little bit of a reset button. But that said, we need to deal with the stigma around how we've dealt with corona, because it's keeping people who could be helped otherwise at home. And maybe there's some people who might even die from illnesses or maybe from conditions that would have been very easily picked up and dealt with because they were afraid of corona. I mean, if you had a lump in your breast and you don't want to go get checked out, by the time you go, it could be now stage 4, or it could have spread. Whereas you could have caught this early if you had been more responsive. So it's a conversation.
It's interesting to note, because even some of the things you've highlighted, that's what this story is talking about further, talking about stigmatization. People are afraid of even turning up in hospitals. Perhaps you get tested and you find that you are positive for coronavirus, and that means you have to stay in hospital and you don't even know what will happen. I think there's an issue of people perhaps, I don't know if you would say that this is the case, that people do not feel safe